There is a kind of revenge that makes no sound, no shouting, no confrontation, no closing speech, just the slow, deliberate act of leaving, of removing your presence from places that once depended on it. And when you go, everything collapses. Because silence, when it comes from strength, is not peace, it's power. It's the power of someone who no longer needs to prove their worth, their innocence, or their value. It's the power of one who has finally understood Jung's timeless truth that everything we try to fix in others is really what we refuse to face in ourselves. And when you see that, when you finally see it, the illusion breaks. You stop trying to teach lessons that no one wants to learn. You stop feeding people who starve on purpose. You stop offering explanations to minds that are already made up. You realize that the only way to protect your energy, your soul, is to withdraw it, not in bitterness, but in understanding. Walking away is not weakness. It is the loudest scream made in silence. It is the art of destroying without aggression, of erasing your existence from a stage that never deserved your performance. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The moment you walk away, you stop calling their chaos your fate. You stop letting their shadow write your story. You begin to understand that staying was never loyalty, it was fear. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being alone. Fear of being the villain in someone else's narrative. But you are not the villain. You are the lesson. And walking away is how you teach it. Syphoria begins here, the psychological withdrawal from the drama that once defined you. The addictive need to be seen, to be understood, to be the bigger person, it dies quietly. You start to see how chaos thrives on your participation. Every explanation, every emotional reaction, every attempt to clarify your heart, it feeds the beast. But when you walk away silently, the beast starves. The noise has nothing to feed on. The arguments lose their air. Your absence becomes a mirror that forces others to meet their own reflection. That is the brutality of silence. It does not attack, it reveals. And nothing is more painful than seeing yourself when the distraction of your victim disappears. Mindset transforms. You stop measuring strength by endurance. You start measuring it by detachment. You realize that staying and suffering does not make you noble, it makes you hostage. And leaving does not make you cruel, it makes you free. You stop explaining your absence to those who never valued your presence. You stop translating your emotions into languages that others never tried to learn. You stop begging to be seen. Because the truth is, they always saw you, they just never valued what they saw. Walking away is clarity in motion. It is a physical manifestation of self-respect. It is the final act of self-trust to choose silence over reaction, distance over drama, peace over participation. Belief changes shape. You stop believing in potential and you start believing in patterns. You no longer get hypnotized by words or promises. You watch behavior. You measure consistency. You understand that hope is beautiful, but it's also dangerous because it can make you blind to reality. Walking away means you've seen enough. It means you've decided that love without respect is manipulation, that loyalty without reciprocity is slavery, and you will never trade your freedom for familiarity again. Clarity becomes a kind of armor. You see through the illusions, the games, the emotional traps, the projections. You realize that most people are not fighting with you. They are fighting with their own shadow. And if you stay long enough, they will make you their enemy. Jung warned of this. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. But most people never do the work. They just transfer their demons onto whoever's closest. And when you walk away, they are left alone with them. That is why your silence hurts them so deeply, because it removes the shield of your compassion. It leaves them face to face with their own emptiness. Vision expands. You begin to see that walking away is not just leaving someone, it's leaving an old version of yourself. The version that tolerated disrespect to prove love. The version that argued to be understood. The version that thought forgiveness meant returning. That self dies when you walk away, and in its place is someone calm, dangerous, untouchable, someone who does not chase closure because they have become it. Purpose shifts. Your purpose is no longer to heal others, it's to protect your evolution. You are no longer the savior, you are the architect. You build peace instead of rescuing chaos. You no longer try to convince people to do right by you. You simply leave space for them to reveal who they are. That is the silent power of withdrawal. It exposes truth faster than confrontation ever could. Discipline becomes your strength. You resist the urge to send the message, to explain the silence, to make them understand. You learn that discipline in emotion is the foundation of freedom. You hold your tongue when your ego wants to roar. You hold your distance when your heart wants to return, because you know that peace costs energy and you will no longer spend yours recklessly. Action becomes spiritual. You do not curse them. You do not wish them harm. You simply remove your energy, and that is punishment enough, because energy is currency, and you were the wealth. Your attention was nourishment. Your presence was light. When you walk away, you do not take revenge, you take value. And without you, everything dims. Gratitude emerges from the ashes. You thank them not because they deserved it, but because they forged your boundaries. They taught you that not everyone deserves access. They revealed the difference between being needed and being valued. You stop resenting the pain because it was the tuition for your evolution. Jung said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." You have paid that price. You have awakened. Adaptability becomes your rhythm. You move differently now, fluid, calm, detached. You no longer announce your exits. You no longer over-explain your silence. You adapt like water, still when needed, unstoppable when released. Walking away is not retreat, it's redirection. You don't flee from chaos, you flow toward peace. Resilience becomes quiet power. You realize that they will talk, they will speculate, they will project. Let them. Their words are just echoes trying to fill the void you left behind. You understand that gossip is the tax the strong pay to the weak, and you are too focused on building your next chapter to collect it. Learning becomes sacred. You study yourself, your patterns, your triggers, your silence. You realize that walking away was not an ending. It was initiation. You begin to understand that not every battle is yours to fight, not every explanation is yours to give. Sometimes power is not in resistance, but in retreat. Sometimes revenge is not destruction, it's evolution. And as you rise in that silence, you start to feel something you haven't felt in a long time: freedom. Freedom from the compulsion to prove. Freedom from the addiction to fix. Freedom from the need to be seen by those who cannot see. You are no longer reacting to life, you are creating it. You are no longer trying to win, you are choosing peace. You are no longer fighting to be heard, you are living to be felt. You become what Jung called the integrated self, both light and shadow, compassion and detachment, love and power. You no longer need to explain your silence. It speaks for you. You no longer need to prove your worth. It radiates from you. You walk away quietly, and the world, in your absence, begins to echo your name, because walking away was never weakness. It was the highest form of power, the most elegant form of revenge, the calmest kind of destruction. You are awake. You are sovereign. You are free. And those who once underestimated your silence will learn that sometimes the most brutal revenge is not rage, not words, not fire, but the sound of your footsteps leaving their world forever. And as your footsteps fade, the air shifts. The energy that once clung to you begins to dissolve, like fog retreating at sunrise. There's no grand finale, no applause, no validation, only stillness. But in that stillness is everything. Because you've done the one thing most people never find the courage to do. You've chosen yourself over the illusion of belonging. This is the moment your spirit exhales. This is the quiet after centuries of noise. This is what Jung meant when he said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. You did not escape the darkness, you illuminated it. And in doing so, you exposed every shadow that fed on your forgiveness, every ghost that thrived on your explanations, every echo that lived inside your empathy. You begin to see that silence is not emptiness, it's purification. It's the cleansing fire of detachment. You've stopped asking the world to make sense, and instead, you've started making sense of yourself. That's what walking away does. It strips you of illusion. It tears the false layers of identity, the ones built on validation, expectation, approval. And what's left, what remains, after all the roles, all the people, all the noise, is truth. Syphoria becomes stillness. The psychological chaos of trying to be enough for everyone has ended. You are no longer fragmented by obligation. You are whole. You do not seek closure. You are closure. You do not crave understanding. You have transcended it. You no longer chase peace. You carry it. Your mindset now operates like a fortress, quiet, impenetrable, deliberate. You stop needing to react because you know that everything reactive is emotional and everything emotional is exploitable. Your calm becomes your camouflage. You blend into silence until silence becomes your armor. Jung believed that true power is self-containment, the ability to hold your fire without needing to prove its existence. You have mastered that art. Belief has evolved into knowing. You no longer believe in the goodness of others blindly. You know that everyone operates according to their level of awareness. You do not take betrayal personally anymore. You recognize it as the limit of someone else's consciousness. You no longer ask, why did they do this to me? Instead, you whisper, this is who they are. And in that whisper is liberation. Clarity now cuts like glass. You see through the performance of those who speak in guilt but act in greed, who promise in love but move in fear. You no longer take words at face value. You read the vibration beneath them. You understand that people's actions are just extensions of their unresolved inner worlds. And because you understand that, you are no longer tempted to fix them. You let them remain where they are while you continue your ascent. Vision expands until it pierces through time itself. You start seeing your silence not as absence but as prophecy. What you left behind begins to crumble without your energy holding it up. The same voices that once mocked your withdrawal now echo with longing for your presence. But you've learned that returning to what broke you is not compassion, it's regression. Walking away means you've outgrown the vibration that kept you trapped. Purpose hardens into conviction. You realize that your life is not a stage for others' redemption. You are not a supporting character in their self-destruction. You are the author of your own evolution. Jung taught that individuation, the process of becoming whole, requires withdrawing projection. You have done this. You have reclaimed your projections, your love, your energy, your identity. You've stopped being a mirror for others and started being a window for yourself. Discipline becomes serenity. You've trained your soul to stay silent when provoked. You've learned the rarest skill not to react to chaos, but to redirect it. You can stand in front of conflict and feel nothing but composure. You can watch manipulation unfold and respond with indifference. You've turned silence into a weapon sharper than any argument, stronger than any outburst. The calm you now carry terrifies those who thrive on confusion because they cannot control what they cannot provoke. Action becomes minimalist, intentional, divine. You don't move often, but when you do, the world feels it. Your words are few, but each one lands with precision. You no longer chase, you attract. You no longer beg, you magnetize. The power of walking away silently has taught you that motion without noise is the highest form of influence. You have become the paradox that Jung described, soft but unyielding, gentle but absolute. Gratitude grows into enlightenment. You thank the betrayal, the loss, the chaos, because it was the curriculum of your awakening. You see now that those who wounded you were not enemies. They were initiators. They forced you to find peace within yourself. They were the dark mirrors reflecting the parts of you that still sought approval. Without them, you would still be explaining yourself, defending your value, wasting your fire on small minds. Adaptability becomes second nature. You can now enter any room full of noise, lies, conflict, and remain untouchable. You adjust your presence like a chameleon, not out of fear, but mastery. You've learned that adaptation is not compliance, it's intelligence. Jung said that the unconscious mind is fluid like water. You have become that water, flexible, unstoppable, formless yet fierce. Resilience becomes silence itself. Every attempt to shake you only reveals your depth. You no longer break, you bend. You no longer plead, you pause. You no longer explain, you endure. There is a majesty in restraint, a quiet magnificence in self-control. You realize that no act of revenge, no argument, no display of superiority could ever compare to the impact of disappearing in peace. Because silence leaves space, and in that space, your absence speaks louder than your words ever could. Learning becomes revelation. Every encounter, every conflict, every ending becomes scripture. You understand that walking away silently is not a one-time act, it's a way of being. It's a declaration that your energy is sacred, that not everyone deserves access, that not every war requires your sword. You have turned your detachment into art, the art of leaving without hate, the art of closing without destruction, the art of ending without announcement. And now, something miraculous happens. The world begins to rearrange itself around your new vibration. People who once tested your boundaries now tread lightly in your energy. Those who took you for granted now feel your absence as gravity. You no longer have to prove your worth. The void you left behind does that for you. You become untouchable, not because you hide, but because you no longer engage. You are no longer in the game, you've transcended it. And nothing confuses the powerless more than someone who refuses to play by their rules. This is the final transformation, the point where your silence becomes legend, your calmness becomes rumor, your absence becomes myth. People begin to whisper your name, not in gossip, but in awe. They can't explain why your leaving unsettled them so deeply. They just know that something about your absence haunts them. Because what you took when you left wasn't just your presence, it was their access to the peace they could never create on their own. You are now what Jung called the self-realized being, the one who no longer lives through reaction but through creation, the one who no longer seeks closure because they are closure, the one who does not explain, does not fight, does not plead, only moves. You have become the silence that ends arguments, the distance that ends obsession, the presence that ends need. You are awake, you are sovereign, you are free, and those who once misunderstood your silence will come to understand this truth far too late, that the most brutal revenge was never vengeance at all, but the grace of your quiet disappearance and the peace they can no longer disturb. And as your path continues, the silence follows you like a shadow of gold, invisible to most, yet undeniable in its presence. You start to realize that walking away silently wasn't just about leaving them behind. It was about returning to you, to the parts of yourself that had been lost in noise, drained in arguments, buried under the weight of proving your goodness. Now, you walk lighter, you walk freer. Every step forward is sacred, because it's no longer powered by resentment, it's powered by sovereignty. You have learned that true revenge is not in retaliation, but in evolution, in becoming everything they said you couldn't be, not out of spite, but out of clarity. You no longer crave recognition for your calm. You no longer want credit for your silence, because your peace no longer performs, it simply exists. It does not need to convince the world it has arrived. It's too rooted for that. Jung once said that People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. But you faced yours. You turned inward when others turned away. You met your shadow, your pain, your loneliness, and instead of rejecting them, you invited them to sit with you. That is the secret most will never learn. Silence is not withdrawal, it is reunion. Every time you walk away quietly, you walk toward yourself more completely. Syphoria becomes harmony. The tension between wanting to be seen and needing to disappear is gone. You no longer seek external acknowledgement to validate your internal peace. You are no longer addicted to emotional chaos as a sign of connection. Your relationships change not because you have become colder, but because you have become cleaner. You no longer vibrate on the frequency of guilt, confusion, or obligation. Your presence no longer exists to fix others. It exists to remind them what peace feels like. Your mindset becomes like steel wrapped in velvet, unshakable, but gentle. You have found that the greatest strength is not force, but stability. The loud may appear powerful, but only the quiet remains standing when the storm ends. You no longer defend your calm. You protect it with silence, with distance, with discernment. You understand that energy is economy, and you spend yours with precision. Belief becomes knowing. You no longer hope that things will get better. You know they already have, because you've become better. The outer world reflects the inner world, and you've made peace your foundation. Jung believed that what we do not make conscious will control us from the shadows. Your walking away made everything conscious. The manipulation, the cycles, the patterns. You brought light to what was dark, and in doing so, you broke the loop. Clarity now governs your decisions. You no longer confuse understanding with permission. You can empathize with someone and still walk away from them. You can forgive someone and still never speak to them again. You can love someone deeply and still recognize that loving them does not mean staying. This is not cruelty, it's consciousness. Jung said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." You have endured that pain, and it has turned into your compass. Vision grows deeper. You no longer look at people through the lens of potential. You see them as they are, not as your love imagined them to be. You no longer romanticize red flags as challenges to heal. You recognize them as warnings to heed. You no longer chase closure in conversations. You find it in observation. You've learned that people reveal themselves in patterns, not promises. And so you let their behavior tell the story while you quietly exit the chapter. Purpose is purified. It's no longer diluted by the need to prove, to fix, or to be liked. Your purpose is peace, to build, to evolve, to grow without spectacle. You've realized that walking away silently is not just revenge, it's evolution disguised as elegance. You've become a paradox, graceful yet terrifying, gentle yet immovable. You are the embodiment of Jung's ideal, the one who has reconciled the shadow and the self. Discipline becomes instinct. You no longer chase closure or retribution. You don't need to. The universe balances everything in time. Your silence sets that balance in motion. You've learned that responding to disrespect only validates it, that arguing with lies only dignifies them, that explaining your worth only cheapens it, so you remain silent and let time echo your truth. Action becomes sacred minimalism. You no longer move in noise. You move in precision. You no longer talk about your plans. You become your plans. You no longer announce your healing. You embody it. The powerful do not advertise transformation, they radiate it. Your silence has become the most eloquent form of self-expression. Gratitude expands. You are grateful for what left, for who betrayed, for what broke. Because without it, you never would have discovered the art of silence. You thank the storms for teaching you to be still. You thank the chaos for sharpening your intuition. You thank every ending for creating space for truth. Gratitude transforms revenge into transcendence. It dissolves bitterness and leaves behind mastery. Adaptability becomes effortless. You now flow with life's rhythm instead of fighting it. You have learned to let go when something no longer vibrates with your frequency. You do not force. You do not beg. You do not cling. You have become like the tide, consistent, calm, and indifferent to resistance. When people try to provoke you, they meet stillness. When life tries to shake you, it finds no handle to grab. You are untouchable because you no longer need control. Resilience becomes grace. You no longer view survival as strength. You view composure as mastery. You can face betrayal and remain kind. You can face loss and remain grateful. You can face misunderstanding and remain at peace. Jung taught that the psyche is self-regulating, that balance will always restore itself if you allow it. You have allowed it. You have become equilibrium itself. Learning becomes second nature. You no longer collect knowledge, you absorb wisdom. Every silence is now a classroom. Every heartbreak is a lecture in detachment. Every ending is a seminar in sovereignty. You've realized that walking away silently isn't about escape, it's about education. It's about graduating from pain without needing revenge to prove you've learned. And as you continue forward, you notice how quiet your life has become and how loud your spirit feels inside that quiet. You are no longer chasing closure because you've become its embodiment. You no longer want revenge because you've realized that evolution is revenge. The most brutal justice is peace, because nothing confuses the people who try to break you more than the sight of you unbothered, unscarred, and still rising. You have become Jung's final truth in motion, the individual no longer bound by projection or pain. You have integrated it all. You are whole. You have mastered the art of the silent exit, the kind that leaves an echo long after you're gone. You are the calm that haunts them. You are the peace they can't recreate. You are the silence that unsettles their chaos. You are awake. You are sovereign. You are free. And now you understand that walking away silently was never revenge against them. It was justice for yourself. The moment you withdrew your light, the world that drained it dimmed forever. And in that dimness, they finally saw what they lost. You didn't destroy them. You simply stopped saving them. And that was the most brutal revenge of all. And now, as you reach the end of this long road, not of distance, but of becoming, there is a silence deeper than all the storms that came before. The kind of silence that doesn't ache anymore. The kind that hums with certainty. You feel it in your bones. You are no longer the same person who once begged to be understood, who once stayed too long, who once mistook pain for purpose. That self died the moment you learned to walk away without turning back. You don't need to look over your shoulder to see what remains behind. You already know. It's echoes. It's ghosts. It's everything that used to drain you, now hollow without your energy to sustain it. And as you keep walking quietly, steadily, you understand what all the great thinkers, all the mystics, all the wounded saints were trying to say. Peace isn't the reward. Peace is the proof. Jung wrote that the greatest burden a soul must bear is the unlived life. But you have dropped that burden. You are no longer carrying unlived versions of yourself. You are living fully, fiercely, consciously. You are no longer waiting for people to come back. You are no longer hoping they finally understand. You are no longer trying to rewrite history, because the future for the first time feels infinite and silent and entirely yours. The world, with all its noise, still spins the same. People still talk, still project, still search for someone to hand their chaos to. But not you. You've outgrown the cycle. You've learned that not every story needs closure. Not every injustice needs correction. Not every wound needs witness. The act of walking away in peace was the closure, the correction, the healing. You have realized that silence is not the absence of power. It is power perfected. You no longer think about revenge. You understand that it was never your task to make anyone see. Life handles its own balance. Time reveals everything that words never could. Your silence became the mirror. And one day, those who played with your peace will look into that mirror and see themselves clearly for the first time. That is not your concern anymore. That is their karma. Yours was to rise, and you did. Now, when people meet you, they will sense something different, a gravity, a quiet that cannot be faked. They won't know your story, but they will feel it. They'll feel the weight of everything you survived without bitterness. They'll feel the strength of everything you endured without hatred. They'll feel the calm of someone who no longer needs to explain, to prove, or to fight. You've become the stillness that unsettles the shallow, the presence that ends games before they begin. You have become what silence was always meant to create, a living embodiment of restraint, grace, and quiet strength. You do not seek to win anymore. You simply are, and that is enough. You are no longer the wound, you are the wisdom. No longer the echo, you are the origin of sound. No longer the seeker, you are the stillness that seekers long for. And so, as you walk away one last time, not in anger, not in defiance, but in absolute peace, the world falls quiet behind you. It knows what it lost, even if it can't admit it. And you, radiant and unbothered, keep moving forward into a life that needs no witness, no noise, no applause. You are awake. You are sovereign. You are free. And the beauty of it all, the brutal poetic justice of it, is that your silence did what your words never could. It ended the war without you having to fight. It made peace look like power. It made walking away the loudest thing you ever did.